Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Ward, for those opening remarks. It's a great joy to be here with you all this evening. I had the honour of participating in this esteemed chamber 2 years ago on a visit to the college. But on this occasion, I'm particularly happy to be here as part of the Franciscan delegation. Now, I realise there is perhaps something of a friendly rivalry between our two schools. With that in mind, I was remarking to the others on the journey down that we do hope that when it comes to participating in debates with Christendom, we hope we will have a better record than we do in playing rugby. Now to the issue at hand. The resolution before us is maximise profits during famine. And tonight, those on the opposing side, will be making the case that the resolution should be opposed not only because it is bad morality, but also because it is bad business. To illustrate this, I would like to make reference to Cicero in his De Officiis, from which this discussion arises. Si ad se rapiet, dissolvetur omnia humana consolitio. If anyone selfishly appropriates to himself that which belongs to the common good, in so doing, he destroys the whole of human fellowship. And that principle which Cicero points to, that of the common good, is the principle which I would like to make the basis for our discussion tonight. So I will argue that those affirming the resolution are radically undermining the principle of the common good, both economically and morally. Taking first the economic question. In the scenario presented, we are faced with a merchant who is knowingly taking advantage of the ignorance of desperate people, and who is, moreover, deliberately charging his goods at a higher than normal market price, because he knows that there are in fact other merchants on the way. Given these factors, I would suggest to you that in economic terms, for the merchant to pursue that course, he is ruining his long-term business prospects. And I'd like to point to 3 different aspects of this. First, the merchant is ruining his prospects with his customers. But when the other merchants arrive and they realize the way in which they've been cheated, they will be outraged at his actions, at his selfish greed, and they will make a point of never making business with him again, and they will tell their friends and family to do the same. Secondly, in his relationship with his fellow businessmen, he will be damaging his long-term business prospects. When the other merchants arrive and realize the way in which he selfishly maximizes profits during the famine, they will shun him from their business community, and they'll make a point of avoiding trade with him in the future, or at least they will be very distrustful of making transactions with him. Finally, thirdly, he would have ruined his long-term business prospects with the economic community as a whole. Through his actions, he'll be sowing distrust among the community, and he will make people that much more likely not to do business with him in the future, but also not to do him a good turn when he is in his time of need. So based on these 3 different factors, the merchant's relation to his customers, to his fellow businessmen, and to the economic community as a whole, I think it is clear that his actions, undermining as they are of the economic common good, are not in his interests. Now, of course, that is only one aspect of the resolution tonight, because we are faced with the moral question. And there, I think, the affirming side is going to be hard-pressed to make their case. Because those of us on the opposing side are simply making the radical claim that extorting from the poor is not a good idea. The merchant in question is taking advantage of a famine situation. A situation, the very definition of which is one where people are starving and unable to make ends meet. And yet the affirming side has the audacity to suggest that it is moral, or in some sense virtuous, for him to take advantage of that situation and to set up a system where it's not the most needy who get the goods they need, but rather the most wealthy. Based then on these two aspects, the economic and the moral, I want to posit to you tonight that those affirming motion are undermining that principle of the common good which binds society together. Now, no doubt, those of us on the opposing side will be accused tonight of opposing capitalism. But that, my friends, is quite long-headed. It goes against the grain, if you like. The reality is that all we are defending is a system of economics and morals that is fundamentally Catholic in its outlook. And I think we would do well here this evening to remember the two patrons of this society and this chamber. Gilbert Keith Chesterton and Hilaire Belloc famously committed much of their careers to defending the principle that the economic order is fundamentally about the common good by which mankind is united towards its common goal of the glorification of God. And it is not, the economic order is not about maximizing profits towards selfish ends. And so for all these reasons, I urge you this evening to reject the resolution. Thank you very much. I'm now ready to take questions.
Questions for the British speaker, and the chair will recognize the Honourable Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the first half of his speech, the gentleman used the argument that the long-term prospects of an enterprise could be ruined by raising the prices against consumers who weren't aware of other products that were to be brought to the market on the margin. So I'm wondering then if the definition of the resolution were changed to be defined as long-term profits versus merely profits, if the gentleman would in fact change his position from con to pro.
That's a fair question. Seeing as the resolution does not specify either way, I don't see it as being relevant.
The chair will now recognize Mr. Scarrett.
So in his speech, the gentleman assumed that the merchant is maximizing profits for himself, purely for himself. How would the gentleman reply to the objection that he may be maximizing his profits to invest in the island's economy?
Again, I think it's a good question, and that is why I made the point that we are not opposing capitalism as such, to which the point you make would be a poignant one. But I think actually, in this scenario, when you're faced with a grave and pressing moral need, then that trumps any long-term endeavors to provide, a boost to the economy. As moral agents, we're obliged to take the situation before us and to deal with that, and then think about the longer term and the wider question.
Mr. Gennaro.
Would the speaker say that the merchant who arrives first would actually be obligated to charge less than what he would normally charge, and possibly even nothing at all, seeing as it's a famine and universal distribution of products?
The nature of the resolution tonight is such that we don't have to necessarily give a precise answer to that question. The greater burden of proof lies on the affirming side, but they are making the case that it is virtuous and acceptable to maximize profits. Those of us on the opposing side are not necessarily, we don't have to specify exactly at what price he should give, We're simply saying that it is wrong for him to maximize profits. It's wrong for him to do everything he can to take advantage of the situation and to take advantage of the plight of those starving souls at Rhodes.
The chair will recognize the ever-patient Dr. Stanislawski.
Mr. Chairman, although I appreciate the gentleman's dodge of the thrust of Mr. Gennaro's question, the premise in his speech was that those that bought from the first captain were cheated. And furthermore, in his speech in the previous one, there seems to lurk some notion of an objectively fair price for the grain that comes off the first ship. Insofar as we either recognize that there is or isn't such a thing, it seems to be something the gentleman cannot avoid in his own assertion. If they're being cheated, then wherein is the dishonesty? And if the dishonesty, I presume, is in the price that they freely contracted to buy the grain at, what then is the honest price, and how do we know?
I thank the doctor for his question. There is not necessarily, if there is an objective fair price, which presumably there is, that is something that can be debated, but that is not the concern for tonight. The concern for tonight is that there is certainly an objectively unfair price. The objectively unfair price is that of maximizing profits. Doing everything you can to make as much money as you can at the expense of people's livelihoods and perhaps even their lives. What the objectively fair price would be, that's an open discussion. But that's not what the resolution is about. The resolution specifies that we're talking about maximizing profits, and that is the unfair principle at stake.
For a brief follow-up. I think the follow-up will be better in a speech. For the final question to Mr. Harrold, the chair will recognize the Honorable Miss Jack.
The speaker brought up in his speech the very real moral conundrum that the merchant who is overcharging is choosing to feed the wealthy rather than those who need it most, who are the poor. However, in this scenario, there are 4 more ships coming who will presumably be selling grain at a lower price. So could the argument not be made that by feeding exclusively the rich and well-off ahead of time, he is not acting in opposition to the justice which requires that all people be fed in a fair measure, because all people will be fed at some point? He can simply feed the rich now.
I'm not sure I entirely understand the thrust of the question. Are we to not give money to the poor on the basis that somebody else might hopefully feed them in the future?
For clarification?
For a brief clarification.
The reason he can maximize profits is because he is the only ship there, but there will soon be 4 ships who will give a more standard price. Can't the argument be made that he's only cheating those who can, in a way, afford to be cheated?
I think I understand the question. The problem with that is that we're dealing with a situation of famine where people are starving and presumably dying. And we don't know how long it's going to be before the other ships arrive. So the moral obligation still stands.
And with that, Mr. Harrold is thanked.